But they don't look like me. They don't talk like me. But they don't look like me. And they don't talk like me. But they don't look like me. And they don't talk like me. But they don't look like
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Episode 9 of The Comic Shop.
What?
Hey, I'm Pat, and of course, my buddy Eugene's with me. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good.
Do you have the sparkles out of your eyes yet from our little photo session earlier? Pretty epic.
I felt like a rock star for a day.
What made you feel more like a king? Was it the assistants or your own personal trailer?
The catering.
The catering was top notch today,
Oh,
too.
my God.
Woo. Yeah, we got wined and dined. So
It was pretty epic.
yeah. Quick shout out to our boy, Mr. AJ Mallory, who did our photos for us today. Great guy. What's the name of his company again?
Bright House Images.
Boom. So thank you. But hey,
Plug.
Big show today. Not only are we going to talk about real life superheroes, we're going to put on our news hats today. We're going to talk about a huge issue that affects a lot of us on a daily basis. We're talking about the Supreme Court versus video games. How huge was this?
It was an incredible win
Huge win.
for our industry.
Definitely. So essentially, the issue was selling violent video games in the state of California, and it came all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Which I don't even know how it got that far.
I am pretty surprised to hear that it got all the way to the Supreme Court. That was my first reaction when you told me. I was like, really? That got all the way to the Supreme Court? That made it through all the different circuits and courts? But apparently it did.
You know what? Usually when a case like this kind of comes up, it gets thrown out right away because we have the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
So essentially the content of video games and whether they're violent or too violent or whatever was on trial today. And we are glad to report that freedom of speech prevailed. They threw it out by a 7-2 vote. So that's pretty awesome news.
You know what? Usually the Supreme Court, when they're on top of subjects like this, freedom of speech will always win. I mean, it worked for the writer of Bill Clinton's scandal.
Oh, the Monica Lewinsky
The Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Mm-hmm.
It worked out for, I don't know, a couple of others.
Oh, there's been numerous books over the years.
Hustler, things like that.
Oh, yeah, that was a biggie. Fahrenheit 451. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and freedom of speech isn't always going to protect speech that you like, but it protects it nonetheless. And what's offensive to one person might not be to someone else. It's really in the eye of the beholder. So
a little bit of wisdom.
Yeah, I'm full of wisdom today. You can't limit and label stuff like that. So a huge win for video games.
Oh, absolutely.
But what confused me the most about the whole situation was I felt like they have the rating system in place. You're not supposed to sell M games, mature, to people who are under 17 unless they have a legal guardian. And apparently some studies were conducted and they found out a lot of retailers were not upholding that. If the retailers simply do their job, we're in business, we're fine. Because then it's the parents' choice to let them have that game, right?
You know, it becomes a completely separate issue than freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Because it makes content of, all categories and all genres and all levels of violence, swearing, sexuality available to whoever as long as you go through the proper channels.
Yeah, I mean, just like with movies, you got to be 17 or have a guardian to go see an R movie. You want a parental advisory CD, you got to be a certain age or have a legal guardian. There are steps.
You can't buy porn unless you're 18.
Yeah, all the rules and steps are there, so it's just really a matter of applying and enforcing them. Boom, easy, done. It just seems so simple, doesn't it?
It seems like common sense.
It seems so simple, and unfortunately, it wasn't like that at all.
I find it kind of weird that would be attached to a freedom of speech issue. I mean, those two should not be, together. I mean, you should be allowed to have content that is violent as long as there are restrictions to the audience in an appropriate setting. But it's just really a case of these people trying to pass their right-wing BS, and they're trying to make it, oh, hey, this is why we're going to attach these two issues together, which are kind of similar, but not really. as a way to try to justify their overall means.
I mean, it's all been done before. I mean, there was a kid who said he listened to a Judas Priest song backwards and it told him to kill himself, so he did. And, they dragged the members of Judas Priest into the courtroom and took them to trial, or the kid who killed himself listening to an Ozzy Osbourne song. It's all BS, and they've tried it before.
My question is, if he killed himself, how do they know that that's what told him to kill himself?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but...
That's the rumor?
It's pretty ridiculous. Well, it's not a rumor. I mean, the parents, I guess, I don't know, I'd have to double check it, but went through his things. I mean, Judas Priest were in court. Like, they were summoned to actually talk about this. This is not just BS, and they literally went to court for it.
Oh, that's so ridiculous.
Yeah. So, I mean, wouldn't you say it just seems to happen to a lot of new art forms when they come up and different mediums? Like, there's always going to be some sort of issues of appropriateness, or is this okay for my children, and sexuality and violence. I mean, it's the same song over and over again, right?
Yeah. But you know what? I feel like if you decide to reinforce this, rating systems have a tendency to increase sales of a particular item. I mean, if you look at the parental advisory sticker.
Oh, it was the best thing that ever happened to music.
You know what? Here you had like Tipper Gore, bringing in the lead singer of Twisted Sister.
Yeah, Dee Snider comes in.
And anyway, they're all assuming that, he's like a drag queen, he's addicted to sex and violence and drugs, and it turns out he's just a normal, sensible guy who, is just a very wild performer.
He's just an entertainer. And he brought up a great point in saying, a song can be what you want it to be about. They had a song that was about a throat operation. Tipper Gore starts talking like the song's about sodomy. And he's like, if that's what's on your mind, Miss Gore, that's what you're going to find in the song. So he busted her pretty good.
Al pretty much jumps over the counter trying to strangle him or something.
No, he was already trying to save the penguins, even back in the 80s, before it was cool to care about global warming. So
I know, what an inconvenient truth.
Oh, there it is. But let me do my Al Pacino, my devil's advocate, if you will.
Okay.
But Eugene, what about the immersive nature of video games? You're role-playing, and you can specifically choose to interact and do certain violent acts. I mean, doesn't that make it different from some of the other mediums?
Absolutely not. I mean, if you have let's say, a choose-your-own-adventure game, say like a choose-your-own-adventure storybook.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically playing a character, and you get to make choices, and then you get to see how they play out. I mean, a video game may be a little bit more interactive in terms that instead of one big long pathway, you get to enjoy smaller sects of choice. But ultimately, in relativity, it's the same thing.
Well, with any medium, there's always going to be the different sides of it. I mean, there's sappy romantic comedies, and then there's, R-rated action movies with a lot of violence. In video games, not all of them are M-rated and violent. There's tons and tons of great video games that are not like that at all. So it just seems unfortunate to try and punish the art in and of itself because of a few differences on some different levels.
You know what? Video games really have so much to give. And if we stop the growth and potential of it, it'll never become what it's meant to be. I mean, there are colleges creating software right now to basically use game mechanics to train the next generation of doctors and firefighters and whatever else your, job might require. I mean, you can apply that to game mechanics, and a person will exceed far beyond just learning the basic knowledge.
Well, and it's like, I know a lot of people, you included, who play some really violent video games, and you included, are not like that at all in your regular life. You're nice, fine, well-adjusted human beings who enjoy a violent video game every once in a while. So to judge it like, oh, you see a violent video game, you play it, you're going to do that yourself, I don't buy that.
I feel like I'm a very adjusted adult. Maybe I might have been like an awkward kid back in the day. I attend church. I'm a college graduate. I work out when I can. I enjoy watching, TV and playing video games, and I'm very passionate about is what I do as a career. But, I was actually telling Pat a story about me in my youth. I was in junior high, during the Columbine shootings. And I was one of those kids that used to get picked on, which is kind of a complete 180 from the person I am today, where I'm very outgoing. I used to be very much a kind of a secluded kid. But I remember this kid who used to pick on me all the time. I'm not going to say names, but he was a real D-bag. Still is. And yeah, of course, once a D-bag, probably always going to be a D-bag.
It's a lifelong
Yeah. But I remember one of his friends basically going, dude, that's the type of kid that shoots up a school. And I really wasn't. The only similarities that me and those kids had was we were both picked on. And then you just kind of have to, really reassess the situation. And I was like, are you serious? That's a completely unfair acquisition,
And he's totally doing it for the wrong reasons. He's not saying, oh, be nice to this kid because, hey, it's the right thing to do to be nice to other people. It's, oh, I don't want him to come back and shoot me in the face or you in the face. So really, he's just looking out for himself.
Yeah,
it's not really about you.
Which I don't think I'd ever held a gun before.
Well, being a former Boy Scout, I've definitely held a gun, but I never wanted to go to my school.
All right, maybe like a BB gun, right?
Yeah, some shotguns, some 22s, but no, that's a powerful story, and I'm really glad you shared that because it totally ties into this subject perfectly.
It does.
Also, it was really epic because you're wearing these sweet sunglasses, and you took them off like halfway through the story, like an awesome reporter. So it's just like you Clark Kented me, just giving me the business. That was good. But I'm glad we can, have some fun about it too.
You know what? Video games. For those who don't know, I spent a lot of time kind of doing, spending my time as an art director, and video games and interactive media are some of the things I actually go out and work on. I've worked on a couple of internet video games and stuff like that, but video games are very much a young medium, and as a young medium, it has been influenced by other mediums such as films, writing, music, storyboards, which are all things included inside of video games. But all those mediums are currently protected by our freedom of speech. If we put a leash on it now, we will never see it to its full potential. It has the power to change the world if given the chance to do so. And there's a lot of evidence already proving that. What's really the worst possible outcome that could come of this? We limit ourselves.
Perfectly put, man. I think that puts the final nail in it. There's nothing left to say. You nailed it. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed that. It was very informative. But now we're going to come back and we're going to have a little fun. We're going to talk about some real life superheroes patrolling the streets of Seattle, helping out you, the ordinary citizen. Stay with us. We'll be back on the Comic Shop.
Inside the system. Inside the system. The connection.